Teslas are well known for lack of maintenance. However, when they do need out-of-warranty maintenance or need a repair due to an accident, it can be pricey. I've had a bunch of experience on this with my 2020 Tesla Model Y. When I first got it, there were a number of factory issues. My VIN was within the first 2200 made, so that's likely a contributor to why it had issues you don't see today, but it's not an excuse. Tesla did fix all my issues with service appointments, and they were free, but since then, the car has been rear-ended twice and had a full battery replacement. Today I'm going to talk about yet another huge repair I just had on my Model Y and why Tesla wouldn't cover this one under warranty, so let's get into it. As I mentioned, my Model Y was one of the first 2200 built. It was also built right before their factory had to shut down in April of 2020. This is no excuse, but it likely contributed to some of the issues I had from Tesla. They were all small things like seat alignments, rattles, squeaks, and more, except for one. The front trunk sensor was messed up and would think the front trunk was left open when it wasn't. Each time it realized it, it would blare tons of alerts at me and force me out of autopilot. This took 2 separate service appointments to fix, which was incredibly frustrating, but they did make it right. They also were able to fix this issue on other Model Ys going forward after finding the solution with my car. Shortly after all of those repairs, though, I decided to list my car on Turo. I was curious about renting the car on Turo to make some extra income and try that as a business model. The car was being used by myself and Turo renters and doing fine, but I wasn't thrilled with the ride quality of the Model Y. It's a very harsh ride and should be smoother, so I had the Unplugged Performance Luxury Coilover Suspension Kit installed on my Model Y. Unplugged Performance is an incredibly reliable company and oftentimes actually knows more about Teslas than Tesla service centers do. They installed those and then I put the car back on Turo. I noticed ride quality improvement, but shortly after I had some more issues. There was squeaking coming from the front of the car and really felt like it was the suspension. I would take it to Unplugged, get it looked at and adjusted, but nothing would quite take care of it. They were certain that it was a problem with Tesla's parts, but the timing really felt like it happened around the time of that install. However, what's important to remember here is that this car is being rented on Turo. I don't know everywhere it has been or how it has been driven at all times like I would if I was the sole owner. The squeaking I had with the suspension got especially bad one day that I noticed it, and when a renter returned the car and I noticed it was still present, I took it back to Unplugged to get it looked at. They were super helpful. While it seemed like they knew it wasn't an issue with their parts, they wanted to help me solve it. They also wanted to rule out positively that it wasn't their parts or their install. They noticed the alignment was a bit off and ended up sending me the alignment sheet once they had it aligned. Not only did they find the alignment to be further out of line than they have ever seen on a car, but they found it to be unalignable, meaning they can get it as close to aligned as possible but can't actually align it because something is structurally wrong with the car. They believed at the time that someone on Turo jumped the car, landed insanely hard, potentially repeatedly, and structurally damaged it inside. Unfortunately for me, this is incredibly hard to pin down since it was never obvious directly after a drive and couldn't be seen on the exterior. Also, at that time, most of my renters had been in their 50s or older, so I didn't anticipate them jumping the car. The issue continued after all of this. I tried to take it to Tesla service, but they couldn't find the issue, and I wasn't able to push as hard since there were third-party parts involved in that area of the car. That's definitely something to keep in mind when getting upgrades like this, so I just dealt with it. I figured I couldn't pin it on Tesla or Unplugged because it's not Unplugged Performance's parts causing the issue, and the issue conveniently never presented itself when I took it to Tesla service. It would also likely lead to Tesla saying it's Unplugged and Unplugged saying it's Tesla, and so on. There's clearly some damage to the car that never would have made it from the factory. It happened when driving. Since all of that, the Model Y has been in 2 accidents. Once, when rented out on Turo, a renter was rear-ended in Bakersfield. They were luckily able to drive the car back, and then I had it repaired. The repair cost for that rear-ending was $8,701.33 from the collision center. Pretty high, all things considered. Plus a couple thousand on top of that to fix the PPF I had installed in the car. I also received loss of income and diminished value from AAA, the insurance of the at-fault driver in that case. That happened, was resolved, and then I got rear-ended on the freeway a few months later. That accident was more severe as the pyro fuse blew and I wasn't able to drive off the freeway. Getting towed was a whole issue, but I finally made it to the collision center. The end result of that repair was a whopping $23,614.36, and it took around 2 months to be returned to normal. Everything was made right in both cases, and insurance took care of it, but it hasn't been fun and has used up a lot of my time. A few weeks after that, which was a few weeks ago for me, after all of those repairs, there was a new message on the screen of my car telling me that maximum battery charge level and range may be reduced, okay to drive, schedule service soon. Great. I just dealt with it for a little bit and nothing seemed to be affected, but I ended up finally taking it to Tesla service. I figured it would be some sort of software reset, but it definitely wasn't. The repair for this was to remove and replace the HV battery. That's the entire battery for the car. So after all of those issues and repairs and accidents, I had a full battery replacement on this 2020 Model Y. Luckily, this was covered completely under warranty. Now, I actually own 4 Teslas at this point. I've had a Model 3 over a year, a Model S for around 9 months, and just recently bought a used Model 3. None of these cars have had issues like this or anywhere close. They've also never needed repairing from accidents. If I had only had this Model Y and no other experience with Tesla, I'd probably sell it by now and give up, but at this point, I'm completely convinced that this car is cursed. Now I have yet another data point for this theory. This time, my Model Y was rented out on Turo, and I got a message from the renter. They said that the car was making some noises and that they weren't sure what was going on. They also mentioned a leak under the front of the car. In the past, I've had renters worry about small, normal sounds or worry about normal AC condensation coming from the front, so I assumed that this was the case at first, but they sent detailed videos and clearly something was wrong. The worst part was, I'm in LA and he was in San Francisco with the Model Y, so I couldn't just drive over and see what's going on. Pretty quickly, he let me know that he will not be able to drive the car. He did a software reboot, but the videos were clear. Something was going on big time. There were 3 issues notified on screen. First, vehicle hold feature unavailable. Then stability control disabled, drive with caution. And lastly, traction control disabled, drive with caution. The sounds in the car were terrible as well, as you can hear right here. On top of that, the leak under the car was significant and not just condensation. You can see that in this clip that he sent, as well as how far the leak was traveling from this photo. It was actively dripping underneath the car as well. Definitely not a good situation, especially since there aren't fluids you're expecting to see on a Tesla or need to change. Here's a close-up of where that leak was coming from. When you see that fluid over the white parking line is when any and all doubts of this being an issue go away. Something was definitely wrong. At this point, we were just in take care of the renter mode. He rented a car from us and now has to get it towed, and we want him to have the best experience possible. Ultimately, he assisted with getting it towed through Turo's built-in customer support, which worked well, and I scheduled an appointment at Tesla service in San Francisco, which luckily had an appointment within 3 days. The other service centers nearby didn't have appointments for a few weeks. He was great and ensured that the car would be level when towed, as Tesla recommends. Technically, what it was towed on isn't a flatbed, but it was only about a 1-mile tow, and we were out of options and running out of time. The craziest videos he sent were when the car was being towed. He looked under the car and found what appears to be an entire loose bolt covered in sludge. It's just sitting there and he pulled it out. You can see another a bit further back as well. Here it is cleaned up after the fact. At that point, it made it to Tesla service. He booked a flight home, which we reimbursed him for, and then we could finally take a deep breath. However, that's not even the repair. In the next couple of days, I received a call from Tesla service, along with photos of what was wrong in the car. The issues were not simple, and here are some photos of the damage underneath where we could see. There's black sludge all over everywhere inside the car, parts that shouldn't be out of place, and then a collection of pieces that completely came undone. They sent these photos and an invoice in an email which said, quote, "We performed an inspection and found the front right axle had not been properly installed with damages present to the drive unit casing as a result of driving the vehicle without the axle properly installed. We will need to replace the front drive unit and front axles due to the damages incurred. It appears that whoever installed the aftermarket coilover suspension on the vehicle did not reinstall the front right axle correctly after removing to swap the original strut out for the coilover." They reiterated this on the phone to me, saying that whoever installed my coilovers did it improperly, resulting in this damage. So my initial response to this was to take Tesla service at their word and blame Unplugged Performance. I wanted to seek reimbursement for this repair since Tesla says it was Unplugged's fault. However, this is where we get into warranty territory with Tesla and why third-party modifications like this are complicated. I spoke with Unplugged Performance afterwards, and they not only sent me their own install manual for coilovers, but Tesla's as well. Both follow similar procedures and neither touch the axle in any way, shape, or form. I noticed as well that Tesla sent photos of the Unplugged Performance parts in my car, and it really felt like a way for them to go, see, this isn't our part, so it's not our fault. They did something wrong, not us. Even though it's clear that a coilover Model Y install does not touch anything related to my car's problem. The reason I was pushing so hard on this was because their invoice was charging me full price. This is an out-of-warranty repair due to their reasoning. Ultimately, the invoice came in at $6,052.43. This included the diagnosis, the drive unit replacement, drive unit assembly, and half shaft. The parts alone were $4,260, and the labor was $1,425 before tax. After speaking with both Tesla and Unplug Performance, I pushed back on Tesla, showing them how the axle is not touched in a coilover change, even if they do it themselves. Thus, that could not have been the cause of this issue. They responded by saying, quote, "Our assessment is that it was caused by the modifications done to the vehicle. If you would like a second opinion, you are welcome to arrange for the vehicle to be transported elsewhere. Please let us know by end of day if you decide to proceed with repairs to take the vehicle elsewhere." After speaking at length with Unplug Performance, I just decided to pay and proceed with the repair. They know their stuff and said that this issue would have to be a long-term issue. It wouldn't have gotten that bad with all that black sludge simply from one Turo renter. This renter was not at fault, and instead the issue probably happened back when they think someone jumped the car and it was damaged. They also said it could have been something like the car going over a curb at full lock around 15 to 20 miles per hour. Since whatever the damage was, it has just gotten worse and finally hit a breaking point this month. Either way, it has to be damage related. This level of issue would not come without damage. Now, I could have gone and gotten a second opinion because Tesla is saying it is this thing that it is not. But ultimately, I had to decide if Tesla is going to cover this under warranty or not, in any case. The advice I got was that if it went through a dispute process at the higher-ups at Tesla, the root issue would be blamed on the damage, not the coilovers, because after all, the car isn't fully aligned. Either way, this repair would be out of warranty. I could have towed it back to LA and gotten a second opinion, but I went ahead and had it repaired. After a few days, the car was fixed, and my dad actually helped me out here. He flew up to San Francisco and drove the car back down. It is now back to normal, sitting in my garage and relisted on Turo. So I've learned a lot in this process. For some watching this, the biggest lesson simply might be never list your car on Turo. Sure, if that's what you take from this, then great, but I just see it as a cost of doing business. I covered the renter's flight, paid for this repair, and ultimately will just work on reimbursing the cost of this repair over time, in a sense, through more Turo rentals. What I will be very careful of in the future, though, as well, is taking extra caution and care when inspecting my vehicles after Turo rides. At this point, I've had so many rentals that I can't pin down a specific one that would have caused this issue. I also went through the estimates for both collision centers that worked on the Model Y after being rear-ended, and neither of those centers touched parts involved in this repair. At the end of the day, I don't know what caused it, but unfortunately, Tesla service would have helped out a lot more if they weren't easily able to point to the Unplug Performance suspension. This repair could have been within warranty and saved me $6,000. At the very least, as I said, Tesla service would have pressed further and researched further to find out what the actual cause of this was if I didn't have an easy out for them. They looked inside, saw a mess, and then saw a part they didn't recognize. Boom, quick answer. Even though clearly it's not. It seems like they really like to do this when it comes to third-party parts from what I've heard, because while they want to take care of their customers, their ultimate goal is to minimize in-warranty repair costs. My warranty is not voided, and they are not legally allowed to void the warranty if I make changes to my car, but if the repair comes down to a part that I installed, then it won't be covered under warranty because it's not their part. It's a tough situation all around, but definitely doesn't encourage me to put modifications in my future vehicles, even though Unplug Performance has been great to work with. I would actually love to install more third-party parts in my Teslas to improve certain things about them. Unplug Performance also has such a great reputation that I want to use them more, but for myself, the warranty consideration is just too much for me to want to deal with in the future. This was probably damage related, and this car has been through so much that I unfortunately can't trace it. But Tesla would have at least investigated further if they didn't just blame the modification. Another thing I've learned in this process is that these things happen. There are things you hear about but don't fully consider until you actually have to deal with them on Turo. It's so easy to list your car within the Turo app that you might not think about what it means if your car can't drive and is 400 miles away. You also might not consider the hidden damage that could occur to your car and leave you with a $6,000 repair down the road. For myself, this hasn't deterred me from Turo because I see the entire thing as a business and I have a personal car to drive. This Model Y now lives on Turo and then I utilize it sometimes. It will have things to deal with that don't affect my personal vehicle, but that's definitely not the case for many looking into Turo. This whole situation has deterred me me a bit from this particular Model Y though. Upcoming, I have a Model Y set to deliver around August to September, if that date holds, and I might get rid of this red Model Y after that. It was exciting when I got it and has remained a great car. My 2-year review of this car holds true, but this one is cursed. Rear-ended twice, battery replacement, and now this repair. I'm about 90% decided that I want to get rid of it and move on. What do you think though? Leave a comment below to let me know your thoughts on me selling this Model Y. In the meantime, if you want to see a video breaking down the true cost of owning the cheapest Tesla Model 3 for the past year, you can check out that video linked up here or in the description below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.